Before the name Jesus was ever spoken, there was silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that feels heavy, the kind you feel late at night when everything is quiet, but your mind isn't. Humanity had reached that silence. The world was full of movement, yet empty of direction. Empires rose and crushed the weak. Religion had become routine, not relationship. People followed laws, but their hearts felt distant from meaning. It was a time when heaven felt far away, and God felt quiet. And maybe that silence feels familiar, because before light enters any life, there is always a moment of darkness where nothing seems to move. Long before the story begins in a manger, the Bible hints at something deeper, a long waiting. Generations passed believing that something or someone would come. Not a king on a throne, not a warrior with an army, but a presence that would restore what was broken inside humanity itself. What's strange is this: when the world expected noise, heaven chose stillness. No thunder, no announcement to empires, no warning to kings, just silence. In ancient writings, this silence lasts centuries. Prophets stopped speaking, visions faded, heaven felt closed. And during that quiet gap, people learned something painful: that knowledge alone could not save them. Power could not fix them. Control could not heal them. And that's where this story begins. Not with glory, but with absence. Because the life of Jesus does not begin with miracles. It begins with waiting. And waiting changes a person. In that silence, humanity mirrors us. We chase success, approval, certainty, yet still feel something missing. The noise around us grows louder, but inside there's a quiet question we can't escape. Is there more than this? The mystery of Jesus starts here. Not as a solution, but as an answer to a hunger people didn't know how to name. Ancient texts describe God as choosing the overlooked moments. Burning bushes in deserts, whispered voices on mountains. A presence felt more than seen. And now, once again, God prepares to move. Not loudly, but intentionally. Because light doesn't explode into existence. It enters, slowly, gently, exactly where it's needed. Before Jesus becomes a teacher, before a healer, before a symbol the world would argue over, there is simply a decision made beyond time. A decision that the distance between heaven and humanity would no longer remain. What makes this moment powerful is not what happens, but how quietly it happens. No one notices. The world keeps turning, markets open, armies march, kings sleep peacefully, unaware that their power is already fading, because the greatest shifts in history never announce themselves. They begin unnoticed. And this is where the story touches us. Because change in our lives rarely starts with confidence. It starts with discomfort, with silence, with unanswered questions, with the feeling that something is missing, even when everything looks fine on the outside. Jesus enters history the same way meaning enters our lives. Not when everything is loud and perfect, but when the noise dies down and we're finally forced to listen. This is not just the beginning of his story, it's the beginning of ours. Because before hope arrives, there is always a silence that prepares the heart to receive it. And that silence was never empty, it was waiting. A child was born into a world that didn't notice. No palace opened its gates, no crown waited nearby, no guard stood at attention. But heaven was watching, and so were shadows. The arrival of Jesus didn't disturb the world loudly. It disturbed it deeply. Somewhere beyond human sight, something shifted. Ancient power structures felt it. Fear moved before understanding did. Because when true light enters darkness, darkness doesn't ask questions. It reacts. The child was born quietly, yet his presence carried weight. Not the weight of authority, but of meaning. Angels, according to ancient tradition, appeared not to rulers, but to shepherds. People who lived on the edges of society, ordinary, unnoticed, tired. The kind of people who knew what it meant to wait in the dark. That choice matters, because from the very beginning, this life was not about status, it was about proximity. God didn't move closer to power, he moved closer to people. But not everyone welcomed that closeness. In the halls of authority, fear took form. A king heard whispers of a child called king and felt his grip slipping. History tells us this fear turned violent. Innocent lives were lost, not because the child had done anything wrong, but because the idea of him threatened control. That's the first conflict of this story. Light doesn't need to attack darkness to be dangerous. Its existence alone is enough. So while heaven watched over a child lying among animals, shadows moved through palaces, plans were made, orders were given, and suddenly the life of Jesus became a life on the run.